Episode 25, The Documents. While growing up, my father, his brothers, and sisters did not know anything about family documents. Their father, Alalahuddin, did not talk about such. In his possession he had 1. The medal which he had received from the Sultanate. 2. The medal which belonged to his father Abu Bakr. 3. The seals which was given to him by his brother Hesham. The seals are 13 rings. It is only much later that the Effendis learnt that the documents are authenticated by these seals. 4. The passport or a copy thereof, of his father Abu Bakr Effendi. It was only after Name Mjadi came to live amongst the Effendis when things started to come to light. My father and his brothers had a lot of respect for their cousin Name. They veritably hanged on to every word coming from his lips. Name always used to say that his daughter Fawzia must get married to a sultan. He advised his cousins to marry their children into people who look like them. Other than this there were nothing else forthcoming. He never spoke about documents, the family heritage or any such things. The few days leading up to his death, my father and my uncles were at his bedside day and night. They thought that he would tell them things about the family that they should know. To their disappointment he said nothing in this regard. No. Nary a word. On looking back I will put a good construction on it. I say, maybe he had good reasons for not doing so. Mayhap he thought 1. They would not be interested. 2. It would grieve them if they should know. 3. Leave it in the hands of Allah, or 4. Maybe the thought to talk about it never even entered into his mind. Whatever the reasons, above all else Allah on high knows best. A few days after Name's death, give or take a day or two, Diahuddin, his eldest son, came running to my father and my father's brothers. He was very excited. He told them that his father's brother, his uncle Farid, came to fetch the chest with the documents. My father and company were so surprised that they exclaimed, "What documents?" Diahuddin spilled the whole sack of beans. It was only then that my father and his brothers blanched to hear that during all those times in which they had been visiting with cousin Name, all of them at one time or another had sat on this very same chest which Diahuddin was talking about. They never ever had any inkling of what it contained, nor did they ever wonder about it. The beauty of the whole thing was that this time their father Alahuddin was still alive. He was just as surprised as his sons. He professed to know nothing about it. My father and his brothers reasoned that the chest with the documents rightfully should come to their father. He was the son of Abu Bakr Effendi. He was still alive, so he was more entitled to it than Farid. There and then they resolved to fetch the chest from Farid's house. They did not confront Farid and ask him for it. They decided to take it by stealth. Uncle Jalal was married to his cousin Farid's daughter Takra. He therefore had free access to the house. With his brothers to help him, it was like eating a piece of cake. That same evening in which they went to remove the chest from Farid's home, they managed to bring it to their father, my grandfather's house. That night there was a lot of excitement in the Effendi family. Everybody was there. This was my father, his brothers, and their sisters. My father stayed with his parents, so my mother was also present. I was also there. I was only a nipper of about 3 years old at the time, so I cannot remember anything. The other most important person present was Diahuddin. His job was to point out the jut. This is a document which traces Abu Bakr's family tree. There were a lot of documents inside. They were all rolled up like scrolls. They were of various lengths, widths, shapes and sizes. There were even documents which were all of 12 meters long. My uncle Jalal had rolled it out down the whole passage, including the kitchen of the house. Some documents had pictures of birds and trees on them. In addition to the documents, there were also some of Abu Bakr's personal stuff like his turbans and slippers etc. The Effendi family could not really get to grips with the documents. They could not understand Arabic, the documents were all written in Arabic characters. The family were not deterred, they got in people who could read and understand Arabic to come and read and explain it to them. Alas, nothing came from this. The people they got could not read, never mind explain it to them. It was written in a style not familiar to them and they struggled to read it. The Effendis were disappointed, but not as disappointed when they came to learn that the Jud was not among the rest of the documents. Dia Huden, who claims to know what it looks like, said that it was not there. He swore high and low that the Jud was in the chest when he last saw it. My grandfather, who was old and frail at the time, could also not be of much help. Later, Name's wife Dia Huden's mother, on being questioned by my father and his brothers, denied that the Jud was in her possession. The Effendis suspected that she had given the Jud into the safekeeping of her family. She hotly denied this. Whatever the case may be, the Jud never ever surfaced then, not up until now. Above all else, Allah knows best. Inshallah, if and when Allah permits, I will write more about the Jud at a future stage. In the meantime, Farid had discovered that the chest was missing. He found out that it was the Effendis who had taken it from his house. He demanded that they return it and threatened them with court action. At first the Effendis did not want to return the chest. One night my father's sister, my Auntie Salama, bless her, had a vision. She saw Abu Bakr Effendi sitting on the chest. When my grandfather Alauddin heard this, he was very upset. He cried. He told his sons to return the chest with all the documents intact to Farid's house. My father and my uncles were not happy about this turn of events. They had a lot of respect for their father, so in spite of their wishes they returned the chest with all the documents and the other paraphernalia that was inside it back to their cousin Farid. The document saga continued. This was not the end of the document episode. Verily, Allah is the creator of opportunities and works to an overall plan. Soon a just solution to this thorny issue of the possession of the documents evolved. This is how it came about. Scarcely a year or so later, my uncle Fuz happened to glance at a certain section of the daily newspaper. He read that a Turkish warship had docked into Tabel Bay. By this time my grandfather Alauddin had already passed away. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. Amen. Uncle Fuz was very excited. He immediately contacted all his brothers and told them about it. As one, they all decided to go and visit this ship. Before leaving, Uncle Fuz put his grandfather Abu Bakr Effendi's passport into his pocket. Once on the ship, my father and his brothers were taken to one of the ship's dining halls. They were surprised to see some of the Cape's foremost Muslims being lavishly entertained to a sumptuous meal. These Muslims were the guests of the captain of the ship. When they saw my father and company, these Muslims turned to their hosts and told them that the Effendis tell the people of South Africa that they are Turks. By the tone of their voices, my father and his brothers gathered that these Muslims wanted to humiliate them. They expected the captain, his fellow officers and the crew to laugh at the Effendis and deny that they are fellow Turks. The Turks looked at each other and questioned one another. Some said the Effendis looked like Turks and some said they don't. Some spoke to the Effendis in Turkish too. The further amusement of the South Africans, the Effendis could not converse in the language of the people who they claimed to be. Then the vice captain, who could speak fluent English, addressed himself to the Effendis. He said, "You claim to be Turks. Can you prove it?" Then Uncle Fuz took out his grandfather's passport out of his inside jacket pocket and showed it to the vice captain. The passport is about a foot wide and 18 inches long. It was rolled up like a scroll. The vice captain unrolled it. When he beheld the passport, his eyes grew round and big. Without a word he turned around and showed the unfurled passport to the captain of the Turkish warship. The captain and everybody facing that side, including the Cape Muslims, could clearly see the face of the document which the vice captain held between his hands. What followed next happened very fast. There was a rapid discussion in Turkish between the captain and his vice captain. Then the captain shouted orders to the officers. There was a flurry. In no time quick the soldiers or the sailors or whatever you call the crew of a warship were lined up besides their officers and besides their captain. They all, every one of them, saluted the Effendis. To say that the Cape Muslims were surprised is to put it mildly. They were flabbergasted, the Effendis even more so. The vice captain turned and faced the Cape Muslims. He addressed them and he did not mince his words. He told them to hurry their eating and then to leave quickly because the owners of the ship had come. He emphasized these words by pointing to the Effendis and added that the Turks would now like to enter into private discussions with the Effendis. After these people had all left, my father and his brothers were royally entertained by the Turks. They talked until late into the night. The vice captain acted as interpreter. And at the end of it all he addressed himself to the Effendis and said, if you have such a document then surely you must have others. My father and his brothers confirmed and said their cousin Farid has got more documents in his possession. This excited the captain to no end. He commenced to tell the Effendis all about his job. He told them that in times of danger a captain is the last person to leave his ship. For the last 25 years he had been a captain. It was his habit never to leave his ship. Never mind what port or which country they visited. Now, after 25 years he will break this habit. He will go ashore with the Effendis. They must take him to their cousin Farid's house. He wants to have a look at those documents. In the wee hours of the morning the captain of the Turkish warship accompanied the Effendi brothers. They went to the house of their cousin Farid. At the time cousin Farid stayed in Cape Town. The captain showed a lot of respect towards the Effendis. He never walked in front of them nor at their sides, he always walked behind them. Of course cousin Farid was still fast asleep when they reached his house. They could not warn him of their coming because he had no phone. This did not deter the Effendis. They knocked loudly on his front door and his bedroom window. They shouted for him to open up, at the same time telling him who they are, and saying that a captain of a Turkish warship is with them. Cousin Farid was bleary-eyed when at last he opened his door. He welcomed his cousins and the captain with open arms and made them feel right at home. After all the niceties and formalities had been taken care of, the Effendis told their cousin Farid that the captain wants to take a look at the documents. Cousin Farid was very obliging. He put the chest with all the documents in front of the captain, telling him to go ahead. The captain was very excited and sifted through the documents. Those documents which he was not interested in he put back into the chest, saying, this document says who you are. I am not interested to know who you are, I want to know what you can live from. When the captain had finished sifting through the documents, he had a bundle in front of him. He took the most important document, held it in his hand. Before reading it he looked at each of the Effendis in turn and addressed them individually. He asked each one of them for his permission to read the document. When he had obtained each and every one's permission, he told them that anybody who looks into these documents and read it without the owner's permission will be answerable to Allah on high on the day of judgment. At the end of it all the captain turned to cousin Farid. He told him that he, Farid, my Father and my father's brothers are all one family. That they all have a right to the documents. The captain offered an amicable solution. He suggested they all go to the ship, make photocopies of the documents and hand a set over to each and every one. Farid to keep the originals. Farid wholeheartedly agreed. Without much ado the captain's plan was put into action. This was how the Wakaf documents finally landed up with the Effendi family. Truly, Allah on high works in mysterious and wondrous ways. Not long after this it was time for the ship to pull anchor. The captain offered the family free passage to Turkey. Once in Turkey he will be responsible for their upkeep. If necessary he will hide them until such a time it is expedient for the family to come forward and declare who they are. For all this that he will be doing for the family he does not want any reward, monetary or otherwise. All he wants from the Effendis the day when they come into their own is to smile with him. If not him then his children, if not them then their descendants, and so on. Time did not allow the Effendis to take him up on his offer, but a pledge was made that his wishes would be carried out. May Allah on high reward him with a lofty place in paradise. Amen.